Next, we turn our spotlight onto the political party conferences in the United Kingdom. The Conservatives have wrapped up theirs in Manchester, where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed a new high-speed railway would now not be coming to that city. Manchester's mayor accused Sunak of switching off the power to the north of England. Meanwhile, in Liverpool next week, the government in waiting sets out its stall. The Labour Party conference then getting underway with a scarcely hidden infighting, possibly the main threat to Keir Starmer's route to 10 Downing Street. Let's get the analysis from a man who's certainly in the know and always a welcome visitor to our shores, John Curtice, Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde, a political scientist and research fellow at the National Centre for Social Research. John, great to see you. Is Rishi Sunak now, more than ever, it depends, I suppose, where you stand politically, but I'll try and get straight down the middle. Is he now a lame duck leader of the Conservatives?
Well, that is certainly the fate that he's trying to avoid. The United Kingdom, of course, has to have a general election by January 2025, which for all practical purposes means by the autumn of next year. Mr. Sunak has now been in office for nearly a year in the wake of Liz Truss's very short premiership, which was marked by a substantial crisis on the financial markets as she tried to cut taxes without demonstrating how they could be paid for. She was brought down by her party very, very rapidly. But the problem is that a lot of the political damage that was occasioned by Ms. Truss has not so far been reversed. On average, at the moment, the Conservatives are 17 points behind Labour in the polls. That's pretty much where they have been since Mr. Sunak took over as Prime Minister just under a year ago. And I think what we're now seeing from the Conservatives, or at least from Mr. Sunak, a realisation that trying to show he could steady the ship after the relatively chaotic and controversial regimes of Boris Johnson and Ms. Truss, that's not going to be enough to narrow the very substantial lead that Labour has. So he's now coming out and he's trying to show some leadership. And above all, he's trying to tap into the mood of the public, which is pretty pessimistic. After all, living standards in the UK have been falling. We have high levels of inflation, and also we have public services that are not working, even though public spending and taxation are relatively high. He's trying to capture that pessimistic mood by saying, you know what, I am the change. Now, this is quite a challenge to pull off for a party that's been in power for 13 years, but that at least is what he is attempting to do.
Indeed, and of course the theatrical optics of declaring in Manchester that high-speed HS2 is not coming to Manchester, of course, was something that perhaps some people could say you could only make up, but it actually happened. Can I ask you, John, about the development of the Conservative Party? I'm kind of thinking, is there a parallel with the way the Republicans are going in the US, more towards a sort of post-truth era where people are saying things, hoping that people will believe them and vote for them? Is that something you're noting?
Well, it's certainly an accusation that has been made in respect to some statements by ministers during the conference. So, there was a suggestion that there was a proposal to tax red meat that may be associated with the Labour Party. Well, most people would say that's not true. There's also a suggestion that the idea of 15-minute cities, an idea that came out of the pandemic, that perhaps we should try to ensure that everybody could live their everyday lives, shopping and surgeries, etc., within 15 minutes walk. Now, that was presented at the Tory conference as, the Labour Party are wanting to control when you could go to the shops. So, shall we say there was at least some apparent over-egging of the pudding. But I think perhaps the more serious point behind what you're saying is that there is clearly an argument going on in the Conservative Party. It's going on about two things. One is, should a party that is ended up in a situation where it's presiding over record levels of taxation and spending be trying to reduce the role of the state? And there are many inside the Conservative Party who are wanting to do that. It's not just Liz Truss. But also there are those who think that the Conservative Party should be pursuing a socially conservative agenda. The particular touchstone issue at the moment is whether or not we should change the law to make it easier for transgender people to get legal recognition of the gender in which they identify as opposed to the one in which they were born, together with, of course, continuing attempts to try to stop the boats that are crossing the English Channel. I mean, particular, Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, widely thought of as a potential successor to Mr. Sunak, certainly emerged in the conference as the cheerleader of those who will want to see the party pursue a more socially conservative agenda. But it has to be said that is also controversial within the party. So in the end, I think the truth is we certainly saw the divisions within the party. But yes, an aspect of Trump, i.e. the move to a more socially conservative outlook, there are elements of it certainly inside the Conservative Party at the moment.
Very briefly, John, because we're out of time, but I need to ask you this question about the Labour conference. Keir Starmer, is he the problem or the solution? What do you think?
The truth is that Sir Keir Starmer is not a relatively popular leader, and he's, in particular, given how far Labour is ahead in the polls, the fact that he has net satisfaction ratings must be a worry for Labour. And indeed, more broadly, there is just a question mark about whether or not Sir Keir Starmer can make it clear to people what Labour stand for. John Curtice, succinct, to the point, and always great to listen to. Pleasure to have you on the programme, sir. Thank you very much indeed. John Curtice there from the University of Strathclyde, someone who knows, well, he's forgotten more about British politics than most people will ever know. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Great to see you. Great to see you.